Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Naruto Dies by Kakashi. Handand. Naruto starts a new life as a Shinigami Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Naruto stood looking over his body in morbid silence. His face was straight, no emotion visible on his face. He was confused. It is strange when you think of it. Many people fear death. They try to find ways to stay alive, but somehow there are those that can't cheat death. Naruto sighed. Did his time really come? He didn't know. All he knew is that he was dead. Dead. What a strange and yet familiar word it was now to him. For years he heard people shouting and whispering the word, but it was followed by other words such as, death to the demon. Or, the demon should die, or the well-known, die demon. It was strange, oh so very strange. He couldn't help but feel relieved. Dying was indeed a bad thing, but at least he did it for someone precious. He met her just a few days ago, but still, he knew she was special. She deserved to be protected. Naruto sighed again. He then shook his head. If he would sigh too much, he would make it a habit. He glanced over his body again, remembering how he died. He subconsciously brought his hand to his chest and shuddered. Flashback. Naruto was looking at the hunter nin's face in shock, his anger for the death of Sasuke long gone. He was stunned to find out that the ninja they had been fighting was none other than Haku, the girl that he met in the forest when he was training. He couldn't believe his eyes. Why did she do what she just did? Why did she just kill Sasuke? He had no idea. She was going on and telling him she was a weapon. Naruto gritted his teeth when she told him to kill her. No, I won't kill you, yelled Naruto. Haku was silent, but then she stood, her head bowed. You don't understand, now you have taken away my reason for living. Zabuza-sama has no need for weak shinobi, or a defective tool. You're not a tool, snapped Naruto. What makes him so special anyway? Haku bowed her head, and told Naruto of her history. She explained how in Mizu no Kuni, those with bloodlines were seen as monsters and tools, and civil wars in Mizu no Kuni had resulted in the deaths of nearly all the Kekkei Genkai users in Mizu no Kuni. My mother was one of them, she said, her eyes vacant. And when my father found out, he killed her, and then tried to kill me, but I killed him. Then Zabuza found you, finished Naruto, his gaze saddened. Her life was somewhat like his, unwanted, and alone. Hi, said Haku. He took me as his own, and trained me to be his perfect tool. But now, she trailed off, looking to the side. Zabuza-sama has no need for a defective tool, so please, kill me, Naruto-kun. Naruto stood up straight. Sorry but no, I won't kill you. Haku turned her head to the side, then they both felt a powerful energy. Haku muttered something about Zabuza and immediately disappeared. Naruto turned his head towards Kakashi's direction and saw him approaching Zabuza with lighting on his hand. Naruto's eyes narrowed when he saw Haku heading towards Zabuza and knew what she was going to do. He pushed as much chakra as he could into his feet and leapt away. He looked and saw Haku appearing in front of Zabuza and Kakashi just inches away. Naruto pushed everything he had into his feet and reached Haku in time. He grabbed her arm and pushed her away, landing in front of Zabuza and getting hit by Kakashi's attack in the chest. Naruto screamed in pain. Kakashi and Zabuza looked in shock at the boy. They heard someone scream, besides Naruto, and saw Haku with tears in her eyes at the sight. End flashback. Naruto shook his head. He didn't like the way things turned out, but as they say, that's life. He looked at Haku and saw the girl pouring her heart on his chest. Why? Asked Haku, crying. Why did you have to do it? Zabuza cleared the mist a while ago and was looking over the boy's body with sad eyes. Naruto glanced over at Kakashi and to his surprise he saw that his sensei was holding back tears. He saw the remorse in his eyes. He knew that Kakashi didn't mean to do that. He knew it would have been too late to stop the attack. He just gave Kakashi a small smile. even thought he couldn't see it. Naruto, muttered Kakashi, lowering his head in shame. Just then they heard someone clapping. They all turned and saw Gato with his thugs on the end of the bridge. He had a smug grin plastered on his face. So impressive, the boy gives his life to save the demon and his whore, said Gato smugly. Shut up, yelled Haku with tears in her eyes. What is the meaning of this? Demanded Zabuza. He, chuckled Gato. The plans changed. At first I wasn't going to pay you, and let the hunter Nin from Kurigakure know where you were. Zabuza grimaced. He knew this wasn't going to end well. But then I saw this fight, and thought that it'd be better to kill off you guys, and give the girls to my men as part of a job well done, he said, pointing to Haku. You bastard, said Zabuza, gritting his teeth. He took off his bandages and looked at Kakashi. Throw me a kunai. Kakashi nodded and took a kunai out. Here, he said, throwing the kunai. Zabuza caught the kunai with his mouth and looked at Gato. Consider what I do now as my way of saying, I quit, Zabuza said with venom in his voice. Kid, wherever you are, this is for you, said Zabuza, charging Gato. Naruto smiled as he heard what Zabuza said. He muttered a thanks and stood watching. Somehow he was sad that he wasn't the one to kill that Gato person, especially after what he did and said. Sayonara, Haku, said Zabuza, and ignoring Haku's calls for him to stop, he rushed towards his opponents. I like that man, said a voice behind Naruto. The blonde boy spun around and saw a tall man, no scratch that, a huge man with a bandage on one eye. The man was dressed with white clothing which had a diamond on the back with kanji for 11 in it. The man had a funky hairdo, his hair was in spikes and at the tips he had bells. He also had a strange sword strapped to his waist. Who are you? Asked Naruto fearfully. The man looked at him. Kenpachi Zaraki, captain of the 11th Division in Gote 13, he stated. Now shush, I want to see what that man does, he told Naruto, pointing to Zabuza. Gato saw Zabuza coming and ran behind the ranks of his men, ordering them to kill him. They responded enthusiastically, but as Zabuza approached, they saw his aura surrounding him. A true demon, said one, and Zabuza began to cut through them. Gato was sure that Zabuza was dead, but Zabuza proved him wrong. He appeared before Gato, sword sticking out of his back, and stabbed the short man with the kunai. Zabuza was single-minded in his mission. Hope you like the heat, he said, his eyes now shining with madness, because where you and I are going, it's going to be hot. With that, he severed Gato's head from his body. His mission done, he did a backflip and started running back to Haku and the remaining of Team 7. When he got there, he stopped and turned to look at thugs. He gave them a sadistic grin before he collapsed on the ground panting. Gato's men turned to Team 7 and Haku. You guys are dead, one shouted. Ransack the village, yelled one, and another yelled, take anything of value, starting with those girls. Kakashi was facing the oncoming hordes. Damn, he looked at Zabuza and saw his wounds but realized that he was going to live. He started doing hand signs and in a puff of smoke about 20 clones appeared. Everyone was caught by surprise when an arrow landed in front of the gang of henchmen. If you come on our island, shouted Inari, at the head of a group of vengeful villagers, we'll stop you with everything we've got. The thugs, seeing the masses, knew that they couldn't do anything more and that they had already lost. They started retreating. Naruto grinned when he saw that. Those guys were a bunch of cowards in his opinion. Ni-san, yelled someone. Naruto and Kenpachi turned to see Inari running to Naruto's body. He shook the body trying to wake him up even though he saw the hole in the chest. He started crying. This made Naruto tear up. Hey, brighten up, heard Naruto a cheery voice. He turned to look at Zaraki and saw a young girl with bubblegum pink hair. She wore black robes and had a strange insignia on her arm. The little girl, like the man, had a sword strapped to her waist, but her sword was shorter, fitted for her. Who are you? Asked Naruto. The girl gave an adorable smile to Naruto and answered. My name is Kusajika Yakiru, 11th Division Vice Captain. What are we going to do with Naruto's body? Asked Kakashi. Sensei, what about Sasuke-kun? Asked Sakura. Haku sneered. He is not dead, he is out cold. Naruto turned back to his depression when he saw that even in death the girl he thought he loved didn't give a damn about him. The little girl saw the sad look and frowned. She jumped from Zaraki's shoulder and landed on Naruto's and started pulling his hair. Ah! Yelled Naruto, grabbing his head. What are you doing? Cheer up. You are too sad. Giggled the little girl. Got off me. He yelled while trying to take the girl of him. Yakiru, look over Naruto while I send that spirit to its rightful place, said Kenpachi as he started walking towards Geto apparently. Naruto turned his attention back to the group on the bridge. Yakiru got off him and stood near him. She was shorter than him, she only reached to his waist or so. Naruto couldn't help but grin, thinking that he wasn't the only one short around here. Naruto-kun, murmured Haku. Zabuza put a hand on her shoulder. Sorry Haku, he said. The girl just nodded, not taking her eyes of Naruto or from the boy that was still crying over his dead, Ni-san. Just then Tazuna came and looked with a sad face. We should bury him, he said. Kakashi nodded. Do you think you could bury him here? He asked. I'm not sure that people back in Konoha won't stop from defiling his grave. Why is that? Asked Tazuna, turning to look at Kakashi. The silver-haired Junin sighed. Let's just say that he carried something he didn't ask for and everyone hated him, not being able to see past their own fears. Tazuna nodded and picked up Naruto. I'm going to make him the best grave I can. He will always be remembered here as a hero, he said, walking away followed by everyone. In the end, all that was left on the bridge were corpses and of course Naruto with the two people. Kenpachi had returned from what he did. He had a sadistic smile on his face that made Naruto shudder inwardly. Yakiru looked at Naruto and asked, why do people hate you? She put it bluntly. Naruto sighed. Well, I guess that I can tell you if you tell me what you are and what is with this chain, he said, grabbing the broken chain that was coming out of his chest. Sure, said the girl cheerfully. Well, it's like this. 12 years ago my home village Konoha was attacked by the nine-tailed demon fox Kyubi. Our leader the Yondaime was forced to seal the fox in a newborn baby because a mere human couldn't kill a demon. So he sealed it in me and died. That is why everyone in my home village hates me, only a few, a handful or so don't hate me, said Naruto. Said Kenpachi, rubbing his chin. Well, since you told us, we will tell you, we are Shinigami. Naruto raised an eyebrow, but I thought that there was only one Shinigami. Correction, there are more. Also there are those spirits that possess abilities can become Shinigami by attending the academy. When they graduate they are put in a squad and they hunt down hollows, said Kenpachi. What are hollows? Asked Naruto. A hollow is a spirit that doesn't have a heart anymore. You can see which one is a hollow by the fact that they have a hole where their heart should be, said Kenpachi again. Okay, so what is with the chain? That is the chain of fate. When it breaks you are dead. If you stay too long on this world while time passes the chain will erode and when it disappears you will become a hollow, or you can also become one if a hollow devours you. Naruto cringed. And what are you going to do to me? He asked, afraid. Silly Spiky, said Yakiru, giggling. We are going to send you to the afterlife, so you, in Soul Society. What is that? The blonde asked. You people call it heaven, responded Kenpachi. Oh, said Naruto. So do you want to go? Asked Kenpachi. Even thought they said they will send him there. Well, I would like to see my funeral if it's possible, said Naruto. Kenpachi nodded. All right. Yakiru jumped on the man's shoulder and turned to Naruto. Come jump in Ken-chan's back, he will take us there, she said cheerfully. I don't think he would like it, said Naruto, uncertain. The girl giggled again. Silly. Ken-chan doesn't mind, don't you, Ken-chan? The man just groaned and nodded slowly. Naruto climbed on his back and he dashed away at amazing speed. A day time later. A day had passed and everyone was prepared for the funeral. Naruto had to wait for a day. It wasn't all that bad if you scratch the parts when the girl bugged him to tell him about ninjas and such. Naruto swore that the girl had more energy than he did. She wouldn't stop smiling, talking, bouncing. He wondered how Kenpachi deals with such a thing. Speaking of Kenpachi, Naruto found out that the man was insane when it came to battles. He was always looking for strong ones to fight to the death. Naruto thought he was insane to wish such a thing, but then again he found out that the man was so powerful he would give old man Sarutobi trouble. Now Naruto was standing on top of a hill looking at the people gathered there. True to his word, Tazuna spent all night to build the perfect grave, fit for a hero. Everyone in Wave Country helped his build the grave. The grave itself was simple like any other, but the grave itself was surrounded by a white fence. The entrance was like a gate on top of which was written, Wave's Savior. Naruto looked at the people assembled. Everyone from Wave was present and everyone was mourning for him. It was strange for Naruto since he hasn't seen anyone except for Iruka, the old man Hokage, and a few other cry for him. Naruto glanced at Haku and saw her crying. Her eyes were red and the blonde boy suspected that it were from crying all night. He tried to hug her but found that he couldn't. He tried to talk to her but she didn't hear. She just cried. She then walked to his grave and placed a white flower on it and stood there watching the grave with tears in her eyes. Naruto sighed and felt himself tearing up. You know, said Yakiru, if you become a Shinigami you will be able to come back here and see your girlfriend. Naruto blushed at the girlfriend remark and turned to the small girl. You serious? He asked. The girl nodded happily. Yeah, alright, yelled Naruto, then I will defiantly become a Shinigami. Kenpachi smirked. It was a scary smirk. He was glad the boy decided to become a Shinigami. He hadn't told him, but his spiritual energy was immense but out of control. With training he would become as strong as a captain or even more. Kenpachi wanted to fight Naruto in the near future. Naruto walked over to Haku and put a hand on her shoulder and listened to what she said. Naruto-kun, sob, why did you have to sob, save me? She asked sobbing. Why did you, sob, do it? To save you, Haku-chan, said Naruto, you are my precious person, I didn't want you to die. He knew she couldn't hear but it just felt right for Naruto to tell her. What will you do now? Asked Kakashi. I have no idea, said Zabuza, still I'm tired of running. If we could, said Haku, could we join Konoha? For Naruto-kun, she said with teary eyes. Kakashi nodded. We will talk to the Hokage, I am sure he will agree with it. Haku smiled. Thank you, she said and then turned to face the grave again. I promise I will become strong for you, Naruto-kun, she said, blowing a kiss to the grave. Naruto blushed madly at the sigh and hugged Haku. Thank you, Haku-chan, he whispered. Haku tensed for a second. She thought she heard someone. It was like Naruto's voice. She smiled thinking that his soul was watching her. Naruto for his part got back on his feet and turned to Kenpachi. Alright, I'm ready. Kenpachi nodded and motioned to Yakiru. The girl leapt to Naruto and took her sword out and put the sword's hilt on his forehead. Naruto was slowly dissolving in a blue light. Before he disappeared he heard the little girl. Meet you on the other side, she said happily. Naruto opened his eyes and found himself staring at a blue sky with several clouds. He was lying on the ground in the middle of a town of some sort and everyone was looking at him, but not glaring, their eyes held curiosity. Naruto sighed as the events of his death replayed in his head. He put his arms under his head and gazed at the sky like Shikamaru would do. He didn't know what he should do. He knew that the girl, Yakiru, said they would meet on the other side. He figured that this town was the other side, so now he waited. Suddenly something heavy dropped on his stomach. He let out a gasp for air and then looked at what fell on him. He saw a little girl with bubblegum hair. She was smiling an innocent smile at him. What the hell? Asked Naruto, raising his voice. You're too stiff, said the girl, starting to bounce up and down on his chest. Naruto gasped for air every time she landed on his stomach. Would you stop, jumping, on me? He asked between oofs. The girl stopped and looked at him in the eyes. Only if you stop being so depressed, she said sternly. Naruto rolled his eyes. It's not like I died before, so I can't help it, alright. Yakiru pouted. Fine, Spiky. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. Why the hell do you call me Spiky? He demanded. Well, your hair is spiky. I could call you Blondie, she said, giggling. I got a name, you know. The blonde boy said, twitching. Oh, Yakiru put her hand under her chin to think. What was it? She said, thinking. Fish cake or something, My name is Uzumaki Naruto, yelled the boy, enraged. She had struck a chord. The girl seemed unfazed. She smiled at him. Ah yeah, fishy cake, she said, giggling. Naruto face faulted. He turned and looked at Kenpachi. How do you deal with this? He asked. Kenpachi looked at Naruto and then Yakiru. That's nothing, he said. Hey Spiky, said Yakiru, gaining Naruto's attention again. What? He asked angrily and twitching madly. The girl looked at him and then put a hand on his forehead. Do you have a fever? She asked. Your face is red. Naruto fell on his back and started hitting the back of his head on the ground. This got the attention of everyone around him. Some people started laughing while others felt sympathy for the boy, seeing as he was brought here by Yakiru and Kenpachi. Yakiru was known for being a hyperactive girl that always liked to give nicknames to anyone, while Kenpachi was the type that always looked for fight. Yakiru, said Kenpachi, we should explain him some stuff before we take him to Saraiti. Okay, said the girl happily. She got off Naruto and the blonde boy lazily got on his feet and looked around. True, he was in a strange-looking city, in a way similar to the small villages from where he came. He saw children, adults, old people and even animals. He then turned to look towards a strange city in the horizon. It looked very different from the town he was currently in. He turned to ask what the city was and what purpose it held. So what is that city? Asked Naruto. That is Saraiti, responded Kenpachi. That is where Shinigami live. We are currently in Rukongai. This is a place for souls that cannot become Shinigami. It is the largest portion of Soul Society and the most populated. It is divided into 320 districts, each numbered in descending order on how far they are from the center. This results in the higher numerated districts decaying into slums. Thus, while District 1 is peaceful and lawful, District 80 is a hardscrabble, violent, crime-infested area. Naruto cringed when he heard that. He hoped he won't go through the same treatment here like in Konoha. He had had enough there. He didn't want a tortured afterlife. His cringe was saw by the two Shinigami. What's wrong? Asked Yakiru. Oh, nothing. It's just the way things go in this place as numbers go down, said Naruto, shaking. But why are you shaking? Asked Kenpachi, interested. Naruto sighed. Nothing important. Yakiru frowned. She then grinned and jumped on Naruto's back and started pulling his hair. Oh, come on, tell us, she said happily, not minding the boy's suffering. Ah, my hair, get down, yelled Naruto desperately. Only if you tell us. Fine, yelled Naruto. The girl let go of his hair and leaned on his shoulder. Naruto's eyebrow twitched. Alright, well, like I said, people back home didn't like me for what I carried. Yes, you told us that, said Yakiru. What I didn't tell you is that because of the fox I was shunned, beaten, starved to death, and I had assassination attempts on my life since I was 4 or so, said Naruto. Yakiru stopped moving and her smile disappeared. Kenpachi grinned for a second. He thought that if the boy resisted through that he was strong, thus proving a worthy opponent. Tell me, boy, Kenpachi said, how many attempts did you have? He asked, thinking they weren't that many. Naruto looked down at the ground. Better not say. It's not that bad, is it? Asked the girl, concerned. Well, if you put the fact that I had over 300 attempts and I was hospitalized more than 400 times from beatings and such, said Naruto, trailing off. The little girl looked sad at him while Kenpachi grinned even more if possible. The boy was indeed strong to survive through all that, though he had to admit that he sympathized the boy for what he had passed through. Anyway, said Naruto, trying to change the subject, why is there violence? Shouldn't there be like a police for or something to keep the order? Asked Naruto. Well, there is no indication that the Shinigami or any other agencies patrol the streets of Rukongai, and as a result, the citizenry are mainly responsible for their day-to-day welfare, stated Kenpachi. Okay, so tell me about Saraiti, said Naruto. Yakiru smiled and bounced up and down. Saraiti is in the center of Soul Society, a circular shiro with 4 main entrances, each guarded by a gate guardian, the girl said. The walls are made of deathstone, a material known to sap all spiritual and psychic energy when one portion is faced in a particular direction. The deathstone also forms a spherical barrier around the city, preventing anyone from entering anywhere other than the 4 gates, explained Kenpachi while Naruto nodded and motioned for the two to continue. The majority of the residents of Saraiti, nobility and Shinigami alike, do not interact with the citizens of Rukongai. However, residents of Rukongai are allowed to apply for the Shinigami Academy, which is often the only escape from the poorest conditions of Rukongai. At the center of Saraiti are the Shrine of Penitence, a white tower, and Sokyoku Hill, where executions take place, said Kenpachi. Executions? Asked Naruto. Kenpachi nodded. You don't need to know about that yet, you will learn in the academy. Alright, so how is this place ruled or something? Asked Naruto. We have Yamamoto-sama, said Yakiru happily, he's old but he's nice. Kenpachi stepped in. Soul Society is ruled by a royal family, which is protected by a royal guard. Further down, Central 46 Chambers serves as a supreme judiciary and legislative that is second only to the royal family. The Shinigami enforce order in Soul Society as a sort of executive and military branch. All of the above, except the royal family and guard, reside in Saraiti. What is that Central 46 Chambers thing? Asked Naruto. The Central 46 Chambers act as the Shinigami judiciary and are responsible for judging and sentencing Shinigami who have committed serious crimes, such as murder or treason, explained the large man. And do you have a leader or something? Asked Naruto. You know, like the Hokage where I come from. Sure we do, shouted Yakiru happily, we have General Yamamoto. Okay, said Naruto, and he is. General Yamamoto is the one that founded the Shinigami Academy about 2,000 years ago. Yamamoto-sama was himself a teacher at this academy, and personally instructed several captains, said Kenpachi. Did you get all of it? Asked Yakiru happily. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I think I have. He then brought his hand to his stomach, feeling strange. Kenpachi saw this and raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? He asked. I don't know, I feel empty, said Naruto. Empty? Asked Yakiru, not understanding. Yeah, like a part of me is missing, inside. He said, could it be that Kyuubi is no more? He asked. It could, said Kenpachi, but the question is, where is he then? Yeah, said Naruto, looking at his stomach. Alright, let's get you to the academy, shouted Yakiru happily as she jumped on Kenpachi's back. She motioned for Naruto to do the same, which he did, but a bit skeptical, not wanting to enrage the large man. Alright, I will lead, declared Yakiru. Forward, Ken-chan. She shouted happily. The large man dashed forward, leaving dust behind him. Wherever he passed, the air blew violently as he speeded towards the academy while Yakiru was guiding. He somehow feared that they will get stuck on the way. Suddenly the girl told Kenpachi to turn, which he did. She told him again and he turned. She then told him to turn to the left, and when he did, they reached a dead end. Naruto looked at the girl. Are you sure you know where we are going? He asked. The girl nodded. I just miscalculated. Turn back and then right, Ken-chan. All right, Yakiru, said Kenpachi. He did as he was told, and then when he was told to take a right and then another right, they reached another dead end. said Naruto looking dumbfounded. You sure? The girl put her hand under her chin to think. I think we should have taken a left back there. You think? Yelled Naruto. Yakiru shrugged. Okay, let's go back and turn left, Ken-chan. The man complied and followed her direction, even thought Naruto was trying to convince him not to listen and to take him to the academy already. After about half an hour they stood facing another dead end. Naruto was twitching violently while Yakiru was saying something about taking a left then a right and not right then left. Ah! Screamed Naruto, do you know where we are? He asked. The girl nodded. Somewhere in Rukongai. Somewhere. Yelled Naruto, we're lost. The girl waved him off. I know where I'm going, let's Ken-chan. 2 hours later and over 100 dead ends they finally arrived at the academy. Yakiru jumped down from Kenpachi's shoulder and started bouncing around like nothing happened while Naruto was shaking violently and saying something about little girls that don't have any sense of direction. Kenpachi took Naruto off him and put him on his feet. It was then that Yakiru grabbed his hand and started pulling him towards the academy while Naruto was with his face on the ground hitting every rock. His face was blank. He didn't know what to do anymore. The little girl was tougher than him. She was too much for him to handle and somehow he wanted to know how Kenpachi handled all this. After being dragged through a lot of hallways they arrived at a door. Kenpachi opened the door and walked in followed by a happy Yakiru who was dragging a blonde boy whose face was on the ground. The people inside sweat dropped and sympathized the boy for what he had to face at the moment. Now Yakiru, I think you should let the boy go, said Kenpachi. Yakiru nodded and let go of Naruto's hand that fell on the ground with a loud thud. Naruto stood there face on the ground not moving and it looked like he wasn't breathing. The people inside, 3 to be exact, murmured amongst themselves if he was still alive. Then Naruto rose from the ground shakily and glared at the bubblegum girl who was bouncing happily and smiling at him. Naruto shook his head and looked around. Where am I? He asked. You are in the receiving room of the Shinigami Academy, said a voice. Here is where we see if you are suited to be a Shinigami or not. Naruto turned and saw a table with 3 people behind it. The first one had spiky black hair, he was dressed in Shinigami robes, and he had a bandana on his forehead, his eyes were black, same color as Sasuke's. I bet you guys know who he is. The one in the middle was an old-looking person, he had a captain cape with the kanji for 1. His beard was long, a white long beard. He looked like someone who lived through a lot of things. The last person had spiky blonde hair, deep blue eyes and a stupid grin on his face. He also wore Shinigami attires. Naruto narrowed his eyes when he saw the blonde man, he looked at his carefully, the man seeing that he was being watched closely also started to study Naruto. He seemed like a mini him, but the only thing that wasn't mini about him were the whiskers. Shit, said the blonde man as he got up from the seat, getting raised eyebrows from everyone except Naruto, who started gaping and pointing at the man. Why you? He stammered. The blonde man started sweating. The blonde man put a scared smile and started waving his hands in front of him and apologizing. Listen, I didn't mean to. I swear, I had no choice, he said. The elder in the middle looked at the blonde. Minato, why are you so scared of this boy? He asked. Well, you see, he said, rubbing the back of his head, he is Naruto twitched. You, he yelled, you are the tard that sealed Kyuubi and me. He yelled as he jumped on the table and grabbed the man's collar. What do you have to say in your defense? Asked Naruto angrily. So this is the boy you were talking about, Minato? Asked the elderly man. Naruto glanced at him, he now saw the man was bald. Sensei, this your son? Asked the one with black hair. Naruto turned to the blonde gaping. The man just smiled scared. Hey son, said the man sweating. Naruto slapped the blonde man's head and let him go and jumped down and sat on the ground facing the 3 people. His act surprised everyone, especially the blonde man who was thinking he wouldn't get away that easy. Aren't you, angry? Minato asked. Naruto shook his head and then nodded. I am and I am not. Why? Simply put, now I understand why you sealed Kyuubi in me. At first, when I found out, I blamed you, thinking you did it just because I was an orphan and let me to rot. Minato cringed at that. But now I kinda understand, said Naruto. But tell me, why didn't anyone tell me the Yondaime, was my father? He asked deadly. Minato sighed. I had a lot of enemies, Naruto. They would have done anything to kill my only son. So I had to protect you. I kept your mother's name. Thought. My mother's name? Asked Naruto. And when was I supposed to find out you were my father? When I die. Minato sat down with a sigh. No, you should have found out at the age of 15. How did you die? You shouldn't have died, said Minato with remorse. Naruto looked at the ground. Sensei killed me, he said. Your sensei? Yelled Minato, not believing. Who is your sensei? He demanded. Before I tell you, I need to tell you that it was an accident. Minato raised an eyebrow. Accident? He asked, not understanding. Naruto nodded. You see, Sensei was about to kill Momochi Zabuza, AA-ranked missing nin. When Zabuza's partner jumped in front of him to save him, I pushed his partner out of the way and got hit by Sensei's attack in the chest. Why did you save a criminal's partner? Asked the black-haired teen. Naruto blushed slightly. Well, she was precious, The black-haired teen smirked and decided to tease the blonde boy. So she was your girlfriend? He asked. Naruto's face went redder. No, it's nothing like that. I just met her, but she was so nice I couldn't let her die, he said fast and then mumbled something that everyone heard. Though I wish she would have been. They decided not to tease him in that matter anymore and resumed what they first started, or at least Minato resumed his question. Who was your sensei? Naruto sighed. Hitaki Kakashi, the copycat ninja. I was killed by his signature move, the Raikiri. Naruto suddenly felt two auras flaring up and then two people yelled outraged. He did what? I can't believe my student, ex-teammate, did this. Naruto scratched the back of his head. Yeah, he then turned to the black-haired teen, and who are you? You called Kakashi sensei ex-teammate. The teen nodded. Yes, Kakashi was my teammate and friend. My name is Uchiha Obito. Thought Naruto. What's wrong, son? The blonde man asked. Well, Obito doesn't seem like the other Uchiha, said Naruto. Obito twitched. What do you mean by that? Well, you don't have a stick up your like the other, especially Sasuke, or at least only him since the massacre, responded Naruto. Ah, we heard of that massacre. Unfortunately, all of those killed went to hell for what they did, said the old man. Why is that? The Uchiha clan were plotting, boy, said Obito. They first kicked me out a day before I died and then they were in cahoots with Orochimaru. Naruto nodded and then turned to the old man. And you are? Naruto, some respect, said Minato. He is General Yamamoto-sama, the founder of the academy and current ruler. Naruto scratched his chin and then grinned. Hey, old man. He saluted and in a flash he was hit on the head by Yondaime. I told you some respect, son. He yelled. The old man raised a hand to stop him. It's quite alright, Minato. He didn't do any harm, and he will learn respect later during academy. Yeah, said Naruto, scratching his head. We should go down to business now, said Yamamoto. Do you wish to become Shinigami? You have a lot of Reiatsu. Reiatsu? Asked Naruto. It's the spiritual energy I have told you about, responded Kenpachi. Naruto let out a long, oh, and nodded to Yamamoto, letting him know that he wants to become a Shinigami. The old man smiled. Then you can start here on my approval. Can I ask something? Asked Naruto. Go ahead, boy. The old man said. When people in Konoha, my hometown, die, can I go and bring their souls here? There is a special person I want to see when that time comes, responded Naruto with a small blush that was caught by everyone. Yamamoto gave a smile. Of course, in fact during the academy we have a test when you need to do a kanso on a dead spirit. Kanso is soul burial, the way to bring souls here, said Kenpachi before Naruto could ask. Naruto smiled. Alright, I'm ready then. The men smiled and Kenpachi grinned sadistically. Okay then, go down the hall to the sleeping quarters and look for room 325. Your roommates are Rukia and Abarai Renji, said Minato handing him a piece of paper. What's with this paper? Asked Naruto. Oh, and when will I meet mom? That paper, you will give it to your sensei tomorrow when you start learning. The materials you need for the academy will be brought to you. I'll buy them, said Minato. As for your mother, she is hollow hunting now, so I don't know for sure. Naruto pouted. You better not forget to introduce me to her dad. Minato smiled. I won't. Naruto got up to leave but was stopped by Kenpachi, who lowered at his level to whisper in his ear. Get strong, because when you finish the academy I want to fight you. The blonde boy smirked and gave Kenpachi thumbs up and reassured him that he will do so. He bid his farewell and left the men, and girl, and headed towards the sleeping quarters. You got out easy, sensei, said Obito. Minato sighed. For a second I thought he will beat the crap out of me. Kenpachi laughed. I bet he could. The old man nodded. I can feel it. He has high spirit energy, and he will become a powerful Shinigami, maybe even a captain someday. That will be the day, grinned Kenpachi. Naruto was walking down some halls. There were rooms everywhere. He was even greeted by some people that were students here. He found a library in the cantina, but he didn't find his room yet. After walking a little more, he found his room. He knocked and opened the door. Once inside, he saw the room was big, though it didn't have much stuff, only 3 beds, desks and a bathroom. He looked around to spot his roommates when a red-haired boy exited the bathroom. The boy looked at Naruto. Actually, he stared at him. Who the hell are you? He yelled, pointing to Naruto. The boy was slapped on the back of his head. Don't be rude, Renji. The boy named Renji pouted. Rukia, I only asked him who he was. The girl shrugged and turned to Naruto. So who are you? She demanded almost in the same manner as Renji. Hey, yelled Renji, you slap me for that and you ask him like me. He yelled, you two are rude. The girl twitched. Oh, shut up, Renji. Naruto, seeing where this is going, coughed to get their attention. Well, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, I'm your new roommate. Renji grinned. Hey Naruto, I'm Abarai Renji. He said, shaking Naruto's hand, and this is Rukia, he said, pointing to the girl. The girl fumed. I could introduce myself, you know, she said, pouting. Renji scratched the back of his head and shrugged. So, he said, looking at Naruto, just started? He asked. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I died a few hours ago and this guy Yamamoto said that I should become a Shinigami. Rukia's and Renji's eyes widen. Yamamoto-sama said that. Naruto nodded. I said I'd give it a try. Rukia shook her head. Anyway, we also started, so we will be in the same classes, she told Naruto. That's great, yelled Naruto, giving a foxy grin. The rest of the day they spent talking. Naruto told them about his home and explained about ninjas. The two were fascinated about learning all that and kept asking questions, and Naruto kept answering, that is, till a girl with bubblegum hair entered. Renji and Rukia saw the tag on her arm and saluted the girl. The little girl gave a smile and jumped on Naruto's back. Hey Spiky, you forgot something, she said happily and pulling his hair. Naruto started screaming. Get off me, let go of my hair, damn it, he yelled. Rukia and Renji's jaws were on the floor at the sight. You forgot to say goodbye to me, she said, pouting. Naruto rubbed his head. Sorry. Goodbye, Yakiru, I'll meet you when I become Shinigami, he said, smiling. Hopefully I won't be in your team, he thought while shuddering. The girl smiled and nodded. She then turned around and left, leaving 2 shocked students and 1 blonde that was rubbing his head and crying over his hair. Somewhere unknown, a red spark was in void, a white void with nothing around. It was facing the great Shinigami, who was a little upset. The Shinigami wasn't like the other. It had 2 horns on the head, a knife in the mouth, dark robes, and emitted an energy of superiority and power. Kyuubi, do you know what you did? Shinigami asked. The spark seemed to shake its head. All I know is that I'm dead. What the hell? He asked. It's because of you that you are dead. Instead of sleeping like a lazy, you should have helped the poor boy, berated the Shinigami. The spark seemed to scoff. It's not my fault he is weak, or was at least. That is exactly what I don't like of what you did, Kyuubi, yelled the Shinigami. The spark seemed to shiver. What was I supposed to do? Asked Kyuubi. First of all, you idiot, you should have kept your anger in place, yelled the Shinigami, making the void tremble. Not again, my fault. Those robed people were trying to imprison me in something. The only thing I saw was a leaf headband, yelled the spark. The void boomed for a second and the spark seemed to shiver even more. Kyuubi, said the Shinigami sweetly. Kyuubi was trembling. The most idiotic thing someone could do is yell or stand up to the Shinigami. You said you saw a leaf headband. Did you at least see it had a scratch on it? The Shinigami yelled. The spark emitted energy of regret. I saw the scratch. I didn't think. I knew he was a missing nin, but rage took over me, said the Kyuubi. And again I proved my point. Now, second thing, you never should have gone to sleep. I put a seal that won't make you fall asleep. It's your sole fault you fell asleep. But I couldn't stand just watching a baby. I wanted to sleep only for 3 years, minimum 2, and then awaken. But something happened and I only awoke after 12 years on the bridge where I died, said the fox, emitting a more powerful aura of regret. The Shinigami waited and then spoke again. You know what the boy's destiny was? He asked. No, Shinigami-sama, said the spark. The boy was supposed to become a powerful ninja and stop the criminal organization Akatsuki and the snake man Orochimaru from gaining immortality, said the Shinigami. And now it won't happen, said Kyuubi. You got that right, but, said the Shinigami, pausing and gaining the spark's attention, we can't let this two gain what they seek, it would destroy the balance. What are we supposed to do? Asked Kyuubi. Simple. The boy is learning to become a Shinigami now. The spark emitted energy of surprise. They accepted him into Soul Society. Yes, they have, and he will start his studies in a few hours. And you will play an important role. You will still be inside the boy, sealed, said the Shinigami. What? Yelled Kyuubi. Sealed again? But isn't there another way? He asked. Kyuubi, said the Shinigami, not that kind of sealed. You will become his Zanakudo. I will what? Asked Kyuubi, not believing he will have to deal with the boy again. Yes, you will become his Zanakudo. This is your punishment for letting him die, said the Shinigami. But still, said Kyuubi, how will he be able to stop Akatsuki and Orochimaru now that he is dead? When the time comes, you will know how he will fight them. He will receive a special Gigai that will allow him to use his Shinigami powers only in his dimension, said the Shinigami. Something tells me you have a mark in this special Gigai, said Kyuubi. The Shinigami nodded. Yes, I do. I made it for him in case this would happen. So you knew that he might die in the future without accomplishing his mission? Asked the Kyuubi, amazed. I only suspected as much, said the Shinigami. All right. Then when do I start? I want to get this over with, said the fox, impatient. You will become part of his soul now, also you will have to share, said the Shinigami. The spark emitted energy that said that it was raising an eyebrow. Share? Asked the Kyuubi. Yes, the boy already has another soul for a Zanpakudo. I had already made contact with it and you two will learn to respect each other and help the boy, said the Shinigami. All right. I guess I will have to meet this soul, said the Kyuubi. The Shinigami nodded and strange streaks of light appeared around the spark. It's time you go, Kyuubi. Remember what you have to do. In a flash of red light the spark was gone and the Shinigami was the only one left in the white void. Kyuubi opened his eyes and glanced around. He was in a forest, no longer behind a seal or bars, no longer in a sewer. But something felt familiar about this place, like he had seen it before. He couldn't put his finger on it. You must be Kyuubi, said a voice that seemed to come from everywhere. Kyuubi turned around. He looked everywhere between the trees, he couldn't see anyone. Who's there? Asked Kyuubi. The person chuckled. I am part of the boy's soul. Shinigami told me you should arrive soon. So you are the spirit I need to share this place? Asked Kyuubi, irritated. That would be me, but why are you irritated about me? I had done nothing wrong, said the voice echoing around the fox. Show yourself, or are you afraid? Asked Kyuubi, growling. Now, don't start growling at me, chuckled the voice. I am not the bad person here. Are you saying that I am the bad figure here? Asked Kyuubi, raising an eyebrow. I never did say such a thing, I only said that we both have a common purpose, said the voice echoing through the forest once again. Kyuubi frowned. Yes, that is true, we need to help the boy as his Zanpakudos. That is right, said the figure, so like Shinigami said, we need to work together and not fight against each other. Yes, now why don't you come out? Asked Kyuubi. I want to see with whom I will share this place. The voice scoffed. Well, I don't know, maybe you will jump and attack me, said the voice teasingly. Kyuubi's eyebrow twitched. Maybe I will do that if you keep doing this stuff. The voice sighed throughout the forest. Very well, said the voice. Kyuubi heard something moving behind him. He turned around and saw someone coming out of the bushes. Kyuubi's eyes widened when he saw who it was. It can't be, impossible, said the fox. The person in front of Kyuubi smiled at him. It wasn't an evil smile, it was a kind and generous one. With Naruto. Naruto was now in one of the classrooms of the academy. Rukia was behind him a few rows to the left, while Renji was in front of him a few rows to the left of Naruto. The blonde boy was situated in the 5th row. The class had a total of 10 rows, each row had 20 seats of the left and 20 on the right. In the middle was an opening through where the teacher could walk or the students. The space between rows was fairly big, so movement was easy. Naruto looked around. The teacher or teachers didn't arrive yet. Students were talking between each other. There were girls and boys in the classroom. Most of them seemed to have seated amongst their friends, maybe because they had time and arrived before everyone else. Naruto, Rukia and Renji weren't that lucky to find seats next to each other, but they couldn't complain. As long as they will be in the same year and study together, it would be alright. Naruto spent yesterday after Yakiru left learning about his new roommates. He found out that they were born in Rukongai, in one of the lower districts where all children were treated like trash and adults hated them and wouldn't give them anything. He found out that they needed to steal and help each other just to survive. He couldn't help but feel sorry for what they had to go through. Naruto felt like they were somewhat like him. He was born with his fate sealed, never to be loved by the people of Konoha, always shunned and hunted for the burden he didn't carry. Naruto spent his childhood the way no one should spend it. His childhood was much worse than Rukia and Renji's. Naruto was targeted for assassinations. People hired ninjas to kill him. They gave him rotten or poisoned food to eat. Even the water and milk, they tried to poison it, though they managed to sell his expired milk every time, making the blonde boy spend hours in the bathroom. Things were never going to go in the right direction, it seemed to him. Every day he was beaten and tortured. He was even hurt in the hospital, and the medics would say it was his own fault, it was an accident. For the people of Konoha, Naruto was only a demon, a thing that should never have been born, a creature created by the devil himself to spread his evil on the land. They never stopped to look at him for who he was. Only a few did, and when they did, they saw they had always been wrong when they saw the boy as a monster. Naruto remembered how he threw his pain away, how he cried his heart out. When he was little, he heard a certain song that caught his ears. The song was locked in his memory, and he would always sing it in solitude after he was beaten, after he just escaped an assassination attempt. It was his way to let things go without showing people he was affected by his treatment. Naruto had a dream to become the Hokage of Konoha, a dream that he now realized it would never had happened. He realized the song he always sang sounded like it was made for him, like the people who sang it knew through what he was going through. He couldn't help but smile, thinking that there were more people thinking about him. It always brought a smile to his face. The talking suddenly stopped and Naruto looked at the door. The door opened and revealed a tall man with white hair just like the snow and 3 brown markings, one on each cheek heading towards his eyes and one on his chin pointing towards his nose. He had light brown eyes and a serious figure. He wore the Shinigami attire. Nadaime from Konoha. Behind that man came none other than Yondaime. Naruto rolled his eyes when he saw him and mentally chuckled when he saw that goofy grin on his face. Behind the Yondaime was Obito, followed by a man with short blonde hair that seemed messy. He, unlike the other, wore the captain attire. On the back of his cape was the kanji for 12. They all sat at the table. From left to right they were the man white snow white hair, then Yondaime, followed by Obito and lastly the captain with blonde hair. They inspected the room. For a second Yondaime seemed serious, and then when he spotted Naruto he gave him a goofy smile, making the blonde boy to sweat drop. The man with snow white hair stood up. "Welcome to the first year of Shinigami Academy," he said, smiling. "From right to left you will learn with each one of us," he said again. "Starting from the right you will learn with Captain Kazuki Urahara." The blonde man stood up and smiled. "My name is Kazuki Urahara. I am the captain of 12th Division," he said. "In the first year you will learn from me history about the Shinigami, what a Shinigami is and what they do, hollow history." He paused. "Also in the first year you will learn minor Kido and you will learn how to create your Zanpakudo." Kazuki took his seat again and Obito stood up. "Hey guys," he said. "My name is Uchiha Obito. You will study with me in the second year. I will teach you minor Kido, basics and such. I will teach you to fight with a Zanpakudo and I will teach you how to do the Kanso." Obito sat down and Minato got on his feet. He gave the class a goofy smile, making everyone sweat drop and think if this guy is serious or not. "Hey, I'm Namikaze Minato." He introduced himself. "You will study in the third year with me. I will teach you advanced Kido and you will learn improved hand-to-hand fighting or Zanpakudo fighting." Minato sat down and the man with snow white hair sat up. "My name is Fubuki Yushi, he said, introducing himself. "You all learn with me in the fourth year. I will go over history, Kido and Zanpakudo training again." Someone raised their hand then. Yushi looked at him and nodded. The boy spoke. "Why is that you will teach us what we had already learned?" "That is a good question," said Yushi. "You see, at the end of every year you will receive a test so we can see if you can pass in the next year, fail and you will do the same year again till you pass." Everyone in the room started talking between each other. Naruto silently prayed that he won't fail 3 times in a row like what happened in Konoha. Then again he remembered that back in Konoha all academy teachers except Iruka hated him and they did everything they could to make him fail so that the demon will not receive shinobi protection from them. "Now, in the last year it will be mostly tests," said Yushi, making every student starting to talk amongst each other even more. The white-haired man raised a hand and the talk stopped. He then started talking again. "Now in the first year the final test is a written one, second year we have a Kanso and Zanpakudo fighting test, third year we have Kanso and hollow slaying test, which of course the hollows will be machines. Last years we have field test. You will have to kill a real hollow. How the last year test will work you will find out them," said Yushi. "Now if you have questions, now is the time to ask," he said. "If you want to stop going in the academy now is the time to say." Naruto sneered when he heard that. No way would he stand down from becoming a Shinigami. A student raised his hand. "When exactly will we get our Zanpakudo?" he asked. Kazuki spoke. "You will get the Zanpakudo a week or 2 after we begin and I give you a little history." Another student raised her hand. "How many Kido techniques will we learn?" she asked. "When is that? First year, second, third or all 3? Asked Kazuki. "First year, sir," she responded. "In the first year you will learn 2 which are common knowledge to everyone," responded Kazuki. "And what about the other years?" asked another student. Second year you will learn 2 more, said Obito. Third year you will learn almost all of them, said Minato grinning. Last year you will learn what you didn't get to learn in the other 3. If you did learn everything you will be put to train in using them, said Yushi. Any more questions? He asked. They looked around the room and no one else seemed to raise their hands. They looked between each other and nodded. Kazuki stood up. Alright, I want you to bring your papers up front so we can see that you indeed passed the entrance exam, said Kazuki. One by one, the students left their seats and went to give their respective papers to the teacher. Naruto was a little afraid now. He didn't know if the paper the old man gave him was for him to enter the first year or not. He looked at Renji and saw that he was bored and falling asleep, a small drool from the corner of his mouth. He turned to look at Rukia. She was inspecting the people in the room. Naruto looked back at the teachers' tables. He could see them talking between each other as they inspected the papers. He could see smiles and some frowns from time to time. Must be the results from the said tests. Then Naruto looked at his stomach. He suddenly felt full, like the part that was missing him had reappeared. He scowled, thinking that he had to do with Kyuubi again. The first time he met Kyuubi was right after the Mizuki incident. When he had fallen asleep that night, he awoke to find himself in front of the fox's cage. To say the fox was rude was understanding. The fox continued to ramble about weak containers and stupid flesh bags and that he would eat him if he were to get out. In a way, the fox was right. He was weak if he had died. But then again, things like death cannot be helped. It is something that everyone goes through, like it or not. Naruto saw that the one near him got up and walked to the table. He saw him returning, so he stood up as well and walked down towards the teacher's table. The teachers looked at him in different ways. Kazuki was studying the boy by the way he moves, Obito seemed to study his spirit, and Minato seemed to study him as a person, while Yushi studied him through the eyes. He saw the man give a slight shiver as he looked in Naruto's eyes. Naruto now stood in front of Kazuki. He handed him the paper the old man gave him. Kazuki saw it wasn't the result from the tests, it was something else. His eyes widened when he read the numbers and he turned to Obito. He handed the teen the paper. Obito read it carefully, his eyes widening, same as with the other 2 teachers. Naruto was wondering what was on the paper since he didn't have the curiosity to open it. The paper reached back to Kazuki, who coughed. Uzumaki Naruto, right? He asked kindly. Yes, responded Naruto. By now everyone was talking amongst themselves about the new boy. He made the teacher's eyes widen with his results and he was staying in front of the teachers more than any other student stood. Naruto, you didn't take the test, right? Asked Kazuki silently so that the students won't hear. Naruto nodded. Yes, the old man gave me the paper and told me to hand it to the teacher today. Naruto, what did I tell you to respect him? Yelled Yondaime. Naruto turned to him and gave one of his coldest glares. If I were you, I wouldn't say anything. I still didn't forgive you completely for what you did, he said. The tone in his voice was so cold that it made everyone in the room cringe and some to wonder what the teacher had done to the boy for him to be so pissed off. Kazuki coughed again. Well, yes, I have to say I am impressed with what is written here, said Kazuki. Naruto raised an eyebrow. And that is? He asked. Now it was Kazuki's turn to raise an eyebrow. You mean that you didn't look on the paper? Naruto shook his head and Kazuki nodded. It seems you have a high amount of Reiatsu, but unstable. It can surpass a captain's if you train enough, explained Kazuki. Also, it seems you have a missing part in your soul. You mean Kyuubi? Asked Naruto. Who is that? Asked Kazuki. That was the spirit of a fox that Dad sealed into me, he said, glaring at Minato but low so that no one except the teachers would hear. Minato started sweating. What? I said I was sorry. Naruto rolled his eyes. Whatever. Shit. I'm starting to sound like Sasuke. Well, anyway, it might be that the spirit of the fox became part of your soul, and since it is missing, you will always have problems, said Kazuki. Tell me, did you feel empty by any change? He asked. Naruto nodded. Yes, I felt empty yesterday, but now I feel full, like the missing part is back in its place, responded Naruto. Kazuki nodded and put the paper somewhere safe like with the rest. You can go back to your seat, welcome to the first year, he said smiling. Naruto gave his own smile and walked back to his seat receiving confused stares from the students, even Renji and Rukia. Back at the teacher's table the teachers were talking amongst themselves. So that is your son Minato, said Yushi. Minato sighed and nodded. Yes, and as you can see he is pissed off on me. Frankly I would too if someone did that to me, said Yushi. Like you would know anything since you didn't have to face Kyuubi. Exclaimed Minato making the students look at him. No, I did not have to face such a creature, but I faced other things. Minato sneered. Like paperwork? He asked. Been there done that. Yushi shrugged. Everyone has a bad moment. Yours had to come when you became Hokage and your son was born. If I were you sensei I would be happy that he didn't beat you now, said Obito. I agree with him, he looked like he would jump and break a few bones, said Kazuki. Minato sighed. Third year will be impossible for me, he said as he stood up. He was followed by Obito and Yushi. The three walked out of the room and closed the door behind them. The only teacher left was Kazuki. He leaned on the chair and moved his hand in the air. You guys have 5 minutes break before we start the class, he said bored. What? Yelled half of the students. Already? A Shinigami never wastes time, that means a student must never waste time, he explained. During the 5-minute break Kazuki examined Naruto. The blonde boy put his head on the table and looked in front of him with no target, like he was trying to examine beyond the class's wall. He could see the pain the boy had to face through his eyes and it made him cringe. It seemed that the boy's eyes were a gateway to his soul, to his past. They held a story that could be written and spoken of for years. People would tell his story again and again. The pain one boy had to face for 12 years, the boy that had to face hardship every time he walked the street. Kazuki had to admit that even here in Rukongai would have been a little better for Naruto, at least the kids would have helped even him as they help each other. 5 minutes later everyone was seated and were looking at the teacher. Kazuki took out a book and opened it at the 5th page. Alright class, open your books at Shinigami History, page 5, he told the class. The students complied and grabbed their books. They opened them at the respective pages and waited for the teacher to continue. Alright, said Kazuki, as you all know Shinigami are departed human souls that have gained supernatural powers. As such, their bodies are composed of ectoplasm and they can only be seen by other spiritually aware entities, which exclude most humans. Also you should know that sometimes there are people with high spiritual energy that can see you. It is best that if that happens their memory about the Shinigami to be wiped as we don't want people to know about us and what we do, said Kazuki. Why so sensei? Asked a student. Simply put they will start looking for us then, they will become part of the trouble and will attract hollows, also if they might do things that would endanger not only themselves but the ones around them, explained Kazuki. How do we wipe memories? Asked Naruto. A good question, said Kazuki. We have special gadgets that once placed on the ground and activated will erase everyone's memories except for the Shinigami. Now back to where we were, said Kazuki. Shinigami, as well as most other types of spirits, are quite capable of influencing their environment. They can be injured and die like regular humans, though it takes considerably greater injuries for the latter to occur than it would in regular humans. Like what? Asked a student. Let me give you 2 examples. Example 1, you are fighting a hollow and it calls upon more hollows. Soon you are overwhelmed and there is no way out. You fight as much as you can but in the end they inflict fatal injuries on you and you die. Said Kazuki. The second example, you are fighting another person, a ryoka. What is a ryoka? Asked a student. Ryoka are souls that have illegally entered Saraiti. A person from Rukongai entering Saraiti without permission would be considered a ryoka. Said Kazuki. Correct me if I am wrong now. The most prominent supernatural power possessed by a Shinigami is their Zanakudo, a supernatural sword generated from the Shinigami's soul, he said. I think most of you already knew that, stated Kazuki, getting nods from some students. Shinigami also naturally give off spiritual energy, which varies greatly in magnitude with the strength of a Shinigami. A Zanpakudo is a physical manifestation of this force concentrated into a blade. It is a crime for a Shinigami to remain in the human world longer than a certain time limit. A Shinigami's duties include leading pluses, ghosts, to Soul Society in a practice called Soul Burial, which you will learn in the second year, and the cleansing of hollows. Shinigami are also responsible for governing the flow of spirits between the human world and Soul Society, said Kazuki. The rest of the day Naruto listened to the history of the Shinigami, how the first one appeared when the world was created, how the first hollow appeared at the same time to create the balance between Shinigami and hollows. After that, when people died, the Soul Shinigami would send them to a plane called Heaven in the past, while the hollow would devour and create more. Naruto found out that in the beginning Soul Society and Rukongai didn't exist, where the current two are now. There used to be a grassy field with trees and such, and in time people, the souls that didn't become Shinigami, started building themselves houses. After this, the king, who no one knows anymore who he is but is suspected to be the first ever Shinigami, ordered the rest of the Shinigami to start building Seraiti, and he created the first 2 or 3 divisions, original or not. Hee. To Naruto this kind of history seemed interesting. He couldn't help but listen to everything with amazement and want for more information, while Renji would fall asleep or at least try to, since the girl next to him would shook him out of his stupor. Overall, Naruto liked what he was learning and couldn't wait to learn more. Few hours later, Naruto was standing in an open field with the rest of the class. Their teacher was in front of them. After about 5 or 6 hours of history, they were brought out to learn one Kido and its basic. What it does and when it should be used. Alright, said Kazuki. As you all know, Kido are a type of sorcery used by a Shinigami. They can be used for various purposes, such as healing, attacking, and restraining. Demon arts spells are divided into 2 major groups: blast spells, which are destructive spells, used for direct attack, and binding spells, which are spells that restrain someone or have other effects. These forms of demon arts spells are performed by calling out a complicated and often long-winded incantation followed by the name of the spell, which causes an effect once the name has been recited. Lesser versions of the spells can be used by calling out the name alone, but their effectiveness is reduced when used in such a fashion, explained the teacher. Now I want someone that is willing to be my guinea pig, he said, laughing at the student's reaction. Do not worry, I will only use the restraining Kido, the first one and most easy. Then I guess I will do it, said Naruto. Everyone looked at Naruto like he was crazy, and someone even voiced it. Are you crazy? Asked Renji. The best way to learn for me if he uses it on me. Besides, it's the restraining Kido, he said as he walked up to Kazuki. Kazuki smiled at him. All right, turn around, Naruto, he said, and the boy complied. This won't hurt. Naruto shrugged. If you say so, said Naruto. Bakudo number 1. First restraint obstruction, said Kazuki, pointing to Naruto. The blonde boy fell on the ground on his knees. His arms were brought behind him and they were restrained with a strange case. His legs were also restrained like his hands. Naruto growled. Man, you could have told me I will fall down. Kazuki shrugged. Anyway, this is the most basic Kido you should all know. You guys will work at first with pulls to try and restrain them, he said, pointing to some posts that looked like humans, meaning that they had legs, arms and a head. Kazuki released Naruto. Thank you for offering. Naruto grinned. It's all right, the best way to learn, right? Kazuki grinned and gave the boy a nod. For the next 2 hours the students grouped in 10 teams, each having 10 students practice the first Kido. Some got the hang of it fast while other didn't. Naruto managed to restrain his target after a lot of hard work, but the restraints were weeks. For him it was a good start, so he didn't mid it too much. After the open practice the group was done with the academy for the day. Everyone had returned to their rooms. But as Naruto, Renji and Rukia were walking towards their room. They ran into a group of 3-year-old, in terms of what years of studies they were in, picking on a girl from the second year of the academy. She had black hair, matching black eyes and glasses. The three bullies were pushing her around and throwing her books around each other while laughing. Rukia gritted her teeth as she wanted to beat the crap out of them. She couldn't stand people like those. But she was beaten to that as Naruto walked forward towards them. "Hey," said Naruto. The bullies turned to him and inspected Naruto. They started laughing. "What do you want, first year? Leave her alone," said Naruto, gritting his teeth. "And what if we don't?" asked one of them. "Yeah, what would a first year do to us?" asked another one, laughing. Naruto gritted his teeth more and started glaring at them. Unknown to him, he was releasing killing intent, so powerful that everyone around him, including the bullies, dropped on their knees, breathing hard. They looked at Naruto, and in his eyes, the blonde's eyes seemed to penetrate their soul. They got up slowly and started running away. Naruto stopped glaring and the killing intent lifted. Rukia and Renji got back on their feet and were in awe at their roommate's killing intent power. Unknown to them, a spiky-haired man, massive in stature with the captain's cape, grinned sadistically as he liked the way things evolved with the boy. He is always after a fight. Naruto walked to the girl and offered her a hand. She took his hand and got back on her feet. She was taller than Naruto, but not with much. She smiled at him. "Thank you for your help," she said. Such power in his killing intent. Amazing, she thought in awe. "No problem," said Naruto, picking her books. "I'm glad I could help," he said, handing her books. She took her books and smiled at him. "My name is Nanao Uzumaki Naruto," the blonde boy said, shaking her hand. He motioned to his roommates to introduce themselves. "They are my friends and roommates," said Naruto. "Hi, I'm Rukia," the girl said. "Abarai Renji," the red-haired said. "You guys are first year?" Nanao asked. Naruto nodded. "Yeah, we just started." Nanao smiled at them. "Well, good luck in your year," she said. They thanked her and wished her luck as well and left towards their room, this time with no more interruptions from anything or anyone. In Konoha, Team 7, or at least what was left of it, Haku and Zabuza were standing in front of the Hokage, who was shaking his head. He had just heard the news and it couldn't be more painful for him. Once people find out that Naruto is dead, they will start parties, which would just make things even worse for him. Kakashi was silently mourning the boy and begging for forgiveness from his sensei and fallen teammate for failing again. He couldn't take the pain. It was even worse because it was he that killed the boy. When the council will find out, they will award him, but he knew he didn't deserve such a thing. He knew that he would never want such a thing. Haku was crying openly when she told the Hokage what had happened again. Zabuza was trying to comfort her. His hand was on her shoulder. He didn't quite know how to comfort someone. He was more of the killing type, not the comforting type. Even he seemed to be influenced by the loss. Even though he didn't know the boy that much, he couldn't help but feel that the boy shouldn't have died. He felt sad for the first time in years. Sasuke was, incredible or not, he was a little sad that the Dobi had died. But he knew that the Dobi had it coming. He shouldn't have become a ninja. He was good as long as it lasted, and the Dobi also had to know that he didn't have to give his life to save the enemy, even though said enemy was someone precious to him. Yes, he felt sad. He was a friend and a teammate, but his stupidity brought him death. Don't flame me for him. This is how I imagine Sasuke would act. Sakura. She was glancing at Sasuke and blushing. Impossible, some might say, but it was true. Her mourning for Naruto lasted one day, and after that she returned to her Sasuke stalking. Even Sasuke was more of a great person, and he mourned Naruto's death all the way back home and all the way to the Hokage Tower. Sakura just seemed to be too stupid to do anything, to care about a fallen teammate. After all, he was just an annoying boy that always asked her out on dates. He was just annoying to her, a scum like her mother had told her. Kakashi, said the elderly Hokage. Yes, Hokage-sama, asked Kakashi slowly. Where is the boy's grave? Where is his body? You didn't tell me. the Hokage said with his head down. We buried him in Wave Country, he is a hero there. I knew that people would vandalize his grave here, so we buried him there, said Kakashi. The Hokage let a small smile. That is good to hear, it is good that at least he died with the respect of someone. But, he shouldn't have, died, said Haku sobbing. The Hokage nodded sadly. I know what you mean, Haku, but this is fate, maybe his time had come, maybe it was written for him to die protecting his precious person. The Hokage's words just seemed to make Haku cry more powerful. Kakashi, I want you to add Naruto's name on the memorial stone, said the Hokage, you have my permission. Kakashi nodded, I will do it. Also, his name, Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto, said the Hokage looking at Yondaimi's picture. Namikaze? Asked Kakashi. That is Naruto's real name, he was the last of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clan. Both clans are extinct and their secrets dead forever, said the Hokage, letting a tear drop for the boy and not for what he was. Kakashi nodded. I will do it. He turned to leave when Sakura piped in. But why should Naruto his name written there? She asked. Because he was a hero, said Kakashi with a sad voice. A hero? Asked Sakura. He was a hero in Wave. Kakashi gritted his teeth. He was in the Wave, but he is also Konoha's hero for. He looked at the Hokage, who nodded. He was the Kyuubi no Kitsune container. He is a hero for keeping the fox at bay for 12 years. Everyone's except Kakashi's and Sandame's eyes widen. But I thought Yondaime killed Kyuubi, said Sasuke. Kakashi shook his head. No mortal can do such a thing, so he had to do the next best thing. Seal it away, in a newborn baby. So, said Sakura, when my mom told me he is evil, she was right. She asked. Kakashi spun around and glared at her. Your mom is like almost all of Konoha's citizens, a bunch of idiots and asses. Sakura and Sasuke were taken back from the outburst. But Kakashi-sensei, said Sakura. Kakashi appeared in front of Sakura and glared at her. You have no right to judge him like a demon. If you think like your mother and the rest of Konoha, you are a scum and a piece of trash. You are a stupid fangirl, weak and pathetic. You became a shinobi just to gain Sasuke's attention. If there was someone else on this team, Naruto would never have died, he said with a cold voice. Sasuke snickered and got the attention of Kakashi, who grabbed him by the collar. And you are a worthless avenger, do you think you can defeat Itachi? He asked, making Sasuke's eyes widen. When you grow strong, Itachi also grows strong, it is a rule of nature. You and you're stupid. I work alone, said Kakashi, spitting. You are as pathetic as your fangirl and as stupid as her, he said, dropping Sasuke on the ground. Kakashi walked to the door but stopped in front of it. Before I forget, welcome to Konoha, Zabuza and Haku, said Kakashi, his anger gone but the sad voice still there. Haku, since it was Naruto's wish for you to survive. He turned to her and Haku looked at him. I will make sure his wish stays alive. I will make sure nothing ever happens to you. Like Naruto, I will protect you, he said, making the girl cry again for the boy she lost. Kakashi turned around and disappeared in a puff of smoke. He reappeared in front of the memorial stone. He took out a kunai and kneeled in front of it. Silently he started singing the song Naruto used to sing. Kakashi had always watched the boy and he heard him sing it. Now he was singing it for him. Conquest to the lover, and your love to the fire. Permanence unfolding in the absolute. Forgiveness is the ultimate sacrifice. Eloquence belongs to the conqueror. Kakashi let a tear drop as the kunai touched the memorial stone. The pictures of time and space are rearranged. In this little piece of typical tragedy. Justified candy. Brandy for the nerves. Eloquence belongs to the conqueror. He started writing the name Uzumaki on the memorial stone. You and me will all go down in history. With a sad statue of liberty. And a generation that didn't agree. You and me will all go down in history. With a sad statue of liberty. And a generation that didn't agree. I forgot to let you know that. Justified candy. Brandy for the nerves. Eloquence belongs to the conqueror. Kakashi started crying as he wrote down the name Namikaze on the memorial stone. Conquest to the lover, and your love to the fire. Permanence unfolding in the absolute. Forgiveness is the ultimate sacrifice. Eloquence belongs to the conqueror. You and me will all go down in history with a sad statue of liberty and a generation that didn't agree. He finished writing the name Naruto and dropped the kunai. His head lowered and started crying more powerful. If the heavens were crying with him, the sky darkened and rain started pouring from the sky. You and me will all go down in history with a sad statue of liberty and a generation that didn't agree. Generation. What is in us that turns a deaf ear to the cries of human suffering? Suffering, suffering now. You and me will all go down in history with a sad statue of liberty and a generation that didn't agree. You and me will all go down in history with a sad statue of liberty and a generation that didn't agree. Generation. Sad statue, by System of a Down. Kakashi put his hands on his head and started shaking his head. His cries intensified as he started singing again more and more painfully. It is because he had just seen and he had just remembered who else had the name Namikaze. He looked at the memorial stone. Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage, it read. Kakashi yelled to the heaven. He let his head drop again. He started singing a song he sang when Obito died. Now he was singing it for Naruto. Dead men lying on the bottom of the grave. Wondering when Savior comes, is he gonna be saved? Maybe you're a sinner into your alternate life. Maybe you're a joker. Maybe you deserve to die. Kakashi started crying again. He took the kunai in his hand and painfully he started marking the date Naruto died. They were crying when their sons left. God is wearing black. He's gone so far to find no hope. He's never coming back. They were crying when their sons left. All young men must go. He's come so far to find the truth. He's never going home. Kakashi remembered Obito's face under the boulder years ago. Young men standing on the top of their own graves. Wondering when Jesus comes, are they gonna be saved? Cruelty to the winner. Bishop tells the king his lies. Maybe you're a mourner. Maybe you deserve to die. He remembered his teammate's face, Rin's face when she saw Obito crushed under the stone. They were crying when their sons left. God is wearing black. He's gone so far to find no hope. He's never coming back. They were crying when their sons left. All young men must go. He's come so far to find no truth. He's never going home. He remembered Haku's face when she trying to wake up Naruto, to not let him die. Welcome to the soldier side. Where there is no one here but me. People all grow up to die. There is no one here but me. Welcome to the soldier side. There is no one here but me. People on the soldier side. There is no one here but me, soldier side, by System of a Down. Kakashi stopped singing. His lungs were hurting. Crying while singing didn't do him good. He dropped the kunai on the ground once again and looked at the sky, towards the heavens. Forgive me, sensei. He said, I killed your son, he said more and more painfully. He dropped face on the ground. I killed Naruto, he said, crying himself to sleep in front of the memorial stone. 2 months have passed since Naruto started the academy to become a Shinigami. Nothing much had happened in those months. All they did were study the history of Saraiti and Rukongai and about the Shinigami. They didn't start learning more things about hollows at the moments, but that wasn't really important for Naruto. During class he paid attention. It was amazing that he, Uzumaki Naruto, the boy that always fell asleep during the ninja academy, was now paying attention. Naruto would have given anything to show his old classmates that he can be serious when he needs to. He also proved that Naruto somehow managed to get on top of the class with his current grades. He wasn't a bookworm, no matter how much people would have said it. He stocked everything in his mind during classes and then only read them once before going to sleep. His relation with Rukia and Renji boosted. They became good friends and shared most of their secrets with each other. Naruto had told them about his life in Konoha, but he didn't tell them why he was hated. As much as they asked, Naruto didn't want them to know yet. He didn't want to lose friends because of something he had carried. His friends' reactions were very interesting to Naruto. He didn't know that Rukia could cry, it was something he never knew. During the academy, she never did show negative emotions such as sadness or anything like that. Renji's reaction was quite interesting, more interesting than Rukia's. The red-haired boy started cursing the villagers of Konoha and then the adults of the district in which he lived. Naruto had met Nanao again after the incident with the bullies, but it wasn't something too important. Naruto didn't get to know the girl too much, but from looking at her, Naruto deducted that she was more of a bookworm but a kind person nonetheless. Every time they met, they exchanged a few words and then parted. He spent most of his time with Renji or Rukia, depending on who wanted to hang out with him during break. Renji seemed to move and try to make some new friends from the class during the breaks. He managed to befriend with a blonde boy. The boy's name was Kira Izuru. Naruto didn't meet the said boy yet, not in person. He saw him during classes, but except for that nothing, and he never talked to him. Rukia also made a couple of friends amongst the girls, more than Renji, that's for sure, but again Naruto didn't meet her friends. It was either because he wasn't that interested to meet new people or because he was never introduced. It seemed that every time Renji went to spend time with his new friend, he would forget about Naruto, but Rukia didn't. She would ask Naruto if he wanted to go with her, but Naruto would decline, not even he knew why. During lunch times, Naruto would sometimes eat alone or with Rukia and Renji. It depended on how the two wanted to spend their lunch period. Naruto didn't complain, he enjoyed the solitude and silence. It gave him a lot to think of and cleared his mind. He felt relaxed. Here Naruto felt good. There was no one to try and kill him or anything. He could walk down the academy's corridors without a worry in the world. He liked it. It was something he never got to do in Konoha. Back there he always had to be on alert so as not to be caught with his guard down and beaten. His relationship with his father improved, a little, but it did. He got to meet his mother and he was grateful to that. The woman had short red hair and looked like a tomboy. But she was sweet and caring, and she had quite the power. Naruto remembered when he met her and Minato told her that the blonde boy is their son. She hugged him so fierce it almost killed Naruto. Naruto got to learn about his mother when she would visit him in the academy. He found out she was originally from the Whirlpool country. She told him how she met his father and such, and also told him the way she died. It seemed that after Minato left with Naruto from the hospital room, the medic who was looking over her left the room for a few seconds, and it was enough for Minato's enemies to enter the room and kill her while she was weakened. Naruto felt angry when he heard how she died. Taking advantage over a sick woman was low. No one would go that low, only cowards. Naruto swore that if he was to meet the ones responsible for his mother's death, he would kill them. Kushina, his mother's name, explained to Naruto more about Shinigami and the divisions. He found out that Minato was in the 1st division and she was in the 10th division. Naruto learned one more Kido, the last one he would learn during the first year. Unlike the other Kido, this one was a destructive Kido used for fighting. Naruto took a liking in using it. He managed to master it in just a few days. The binding Kido took him an entire month to master, but in the end he got it right. Now, Naruto is an exceptional student. For the first time he was an example for other students. But this didn't stop Naruto from pranking. The only thing he hated was that every time he did a prank everyone blamed Minato, saying that he did it. Naruto didn't understand why people would blame his father for what he did. In fact, they never did say anything about Naruto. They said that Minato did the prank, that he didn't get it out of his system yet. The blonde man swore to find out who did it, who framed him. So now Naruto was all tied up and being dragged to his classroom where his sensei Kazuki is. He used his lunch break to pull another prank. He found it funny. There was a guy that kept saying he is beautiful and said about other people that they are ugly. Naruto covered him in tar and feathers, but unfortunately Minato witnessed it and he captured his son red-handed. After tying the boy up, he started dragging him back to his class, telling him stuff about pulling pranks being wrong and that framing their fathers was even worse. As Minato opened the door, he found Kazuki leaned on his chair asleep. Or so it seemed. The man opened his eyes and looked at Yondaime. He saw that the blonde man was carrying his son that was all tied up. Minato pushed Naruto in front of his sensei and he took a position behind Naruto. He folded his arms and glared at Naruto. Kazuki just scratched his head, not understanding what was happening in front of him. Minato tapped his foot and Naruto sighed. What's happening? Asked Kazuki. My son over here is to blame for all the pranks, said Minato. Kazuki raised an eyebrow. For your pranks? He asked. It's no use to blame your son, we know you did them. Yondaime gaped before he shook his head. No, I just saw him tarring a Yasugawa Yumashika of the 11th Division. And how am I sure that is true? Asked Kazuki. Just then, luckily for Yondaime Yakiru, Kenpachi and Yumashika entered the room. Kazuki chuckled when he was how Yumashika looked. Naruto burst into laughter and started rolling on the floor. Yakiru also started giggling. See, I told you that you look good, said Yakiru to Yumashika, who fumed. That is not true, my beautiful face is now full of feathers, he said. Kenpachi shrugged. It says something. Yumashika spotted Naruto and pointed at him. You, he said, you are the one that did this to me. Yondaime grinned and turned to Kazuki. See, I told you. Kazuki looked at Yondaime and then at Naruto and back at Yondaime. Like father, like son. Yondaime opened his mouth to speak. He didn't find anything to say and closed his mouth. He looked at Naruto, who was grinning, and shook his head. He gave him thumbs up and grinned. Good job, he said, just like your old dad. Naruto's grin widened. I knew you would see it my way. Minato nodded. Yes, but, he looked serious. You will still be punished for this, and as punishment, he stopped. What should he do to Naruto? He didn't know, he had absolutely no idea. He ignored the cries of Yumashika to tar Naruto as well. Kazuki coughed. I might have a punishment for him. Like what? Asked Minato, raising an eyebrow. I have a letter I want to reach Komamura Sajin, captain of the 7th Division, said Kazuki, taking out a letter from his cape. Minato nodded and untied Naruto. Alright, you will take the letter and then come back to class. Do I have to? Whined Naruto. Yes, or else I will tell your mother, said Minato. And what will she do to me? He asked. Minato shuddered. You don't want to know what she does when she is angry. Naruto saw his father shuddering and grabbed the letter from Kazuki's hands. Alright, I'll do it, just don't tell her. Alright, follow me, said Minato, walking towards the door. Naruto was walking behind his father, ignoring the tarred man that was screaming about his lost beauty. He could hear Yakiru saying that Naruto should have used more feathers, thus making him look more bird-like and more pretty, or at least to her. Now Naruto was following his father through a series of labyrinths. They were the streets of Saraiti. The blonde boy didn't understand why they couldn't just jump on a building and start running towards their destination. Unknown to him, the same thought passed Minato's head. He didn't know why he was walking. He knew his son can follow, so why was he walking? Suddenly Minato jumped on a building. Naruto blinked before he followed suit. Now they were running on top of the buildings. Naruto was grateful that his speed stayed the same, but he didn't understand how he could jump high distances. They haven't been taught how to use their Reiatsu yet. He shrugged and continued to follow the blonde man. A few minutes later they reached a huge compound. On its entrance was the kanji for 7. Minato pushed Naruto and told him to go and find the captain and give him the letter. Naruto nodded and walked past the guards that didn't say anything. Naruto walked through long corridors and looked for the right door. He figured that the door to the captain's room should be marked or something. And he was right. After walking for a few minutes he arrived in front of a large door, Japanese style. On top of the door was written, 7th Division's Captain. Naruto knocked and heard someone telling him to open the door. He slid it to the left and looked inside the room. There were various weapons around the room, a desk and a chair. There was a carpet on the floor and the captain was standing on it, or more like sitting. The captain was massive, almost like Kenpachi. He wore the Shinigami attire and a captain's cape with the kanji for 7 on its back. What was strange was that the man wore some sort of helmet that covered his face. Naruto bowed as he was learned to do in the academy and introduced himself. Uzumaki Naruto, first-year student at the academy. Kazuki-sensei sent me to give you a letter, sir. The man nodded. Come here, boy, he said. Naruto nodded and walked inside the room. He closed the door and walked towards the captain. He handed him the letter and the man took it. He opened it and read it and then got on his feet. He walked to his desk and placed it there and then turned to Naruto. Is that all? He asked. Naruto nodded. Yes, I was only sent to deliver the message. The captain nodded. Very well, you may go then. Naruto was about to leave when he felt that the man was somehow familiar. Naruto felt like the man was somehow related to a fox. He studied the man, his body was human, and the only thing he didn't know was what was under his helmet. The captain saw Naruto was studying him and raised an eyebrow under his helmet. What's wrong? He asked. Naruto shook his head. Nothing. It just feels like I know you. Now the captain was interested. Know me? He asked, intrigued. Yes, said Naruto. You see, when I was little I had a demon fox sealed inside of me, and one day the fox enhanced my senses so I can survive. And I think my senses are still enhanced because you have a faint smell of fox. The man's mouth was open and his eyes were wide. The boy somehow realized of his look, the look that made his an outcast in the past. But what was more interesting was that the boy had a demon sealed inside of him and he was here, standing right in front of him. That could only mean that the boy wasn't influenced by the demon and his soul was pure. Well, you see, there is something about me that not most know, he said. Like what? Asked Naruto, intrigued. Sajin turned around and looked at the wall. I'm afraid I cannot tell you since I do not trust you enough. I can understand that, he said, shocking Sajin. The captain thought that Naruto would start pleading to find out his secret. I too was afraid to tell people of the demon inside of me when I was alive, especially to the young generation, since it seemed that only they didn't look at me like a demon. What do you mean by that? Asked Sajin, interested. Well, you see, to protect me and be able to live a normal life, the leader of my village made a law forbidding people to speak about the demon and forbidding them to tell anyone about it, especially their children. Naruto explained. I can see why, said Sajin. He wanted you to live a normal life by having friends. Naruto nodded. Yes, but it seems that the people found a way around the law and started telling their children I was evil and dangerous and forbid them to play with me, he said. Now Sajin was a little sad for the boy. It reminded him about his past. He was an outcast because of the way he looked and no one wanted to speak or go near him. He was treated poorly and people looked with disgust at him, all except 2, and those are Yamamoto, who helped him become a Shinigami, and Tusen Kanami. So the children always avoided me and treated me badly like their parents did, continued Naruto. Not even when I entered the academy to learn how to become a ninja was I treated different. They still treated me how their parents told them to, said Naruto. I barely made a few friends. In fact, I don't know if they were real friends since I died before I could know them better, said Naruto, looking sad. Sajin frowned. Your story is touching, boy. Yeah, I know. I mean, I never heard anything like that. You were an outcast. Something like that, I think, said Naruto, looking at the door. Sajin nodded. You are almost like me, he said. Naruto turned to the man and looked at him questionable. What do you mean? He asked. Sajin brought his hands to his helmet and slowly removed it. When it wasn't covering him anymore, Naruto saw how the captain looked under the helmet. He had a fox's head, but he also took another glimpse at his body and saw that it was like a humanoid fox. Naruto's eyes were big as saucers. Because of the way I look, I was an outcast here, said Sajin, that is until Yamamoto-sama took me under his wing and trained me to become a Shinigami. So people were mean to you because you have the head of fox? Asked Naruto. The captain nodded and put his helmet back on his head. I expect you not to tell anyone. How could I tell anyone? Asked Naruto. That would make me as bad as the villagers back in my village. Sajin nodded. Yes, it would, not to mention that you would betray my trust and that I will kill you. You mean I gained your trust? Asked Naruto. How come? I told you, you and me are in a way similar. You were an outcast because of what you carried. I was an outcast because of how I looked. Said the captain. I showed you how I look because I could feel that you would keep it a secret. Yeah, but can you tell me something? Asked Naruto. Sure. The captain responded. How come you have a fox head? Were you born like that? Asked Naruto, intrigued. To be honest, I don't remember, said Sajin. How come? In time you lose your memories and you can't remember most of your past, explained Sajin. Naruto's eyes widen. So that means that in the future I will forget about my home village and everyone there? He asked. Sajin nodded. Yes, but I don't know after how many years. Naruto sighed. At least I will forget about the way I was treated, but I wish I won't forget about those that were precious to me. Precious? Asked Sajin. Yes, those people that treated me good have become precious to me. I vowed to protect them, but I died before I could keep my vow. Maybe, somehow I can protect them from the dead, explained Naruto. So the village leader was a precious person to you? Asked Sajin. Yes, like Yamamoto-sama is to you, said Naruto. And what are the benefits of protecting your precious people? The captain asked, interested. You gain strength wishing to protect those precious, or at least it applied to me, said Naruto. I see, it is quite interesting. Sajin said, thinking. I think I should go. Dad is waiting for me at the compound's entrance and maybe Sensei is getting worried, said Naruto, scratching the back of his head. Sajin nodded. All right, you can go. He said, turning around. Before you leave, can I tell you one last thing? Asked Sajin. Naruto nodded. Sure. Come by here when you want to talk. I enjoyed our conversation, he said. Naruto grinned. You bet I will. See you later, Sajin Taiko, said Naruto, walking out of the room. Sajin smiled under his mask. Interesting boy, he said as he sat back down on the carpet to meditate. Naruto walked outside the compound. He saw Minato looking at the sky and looking bored. The blonde man spotted Naruto and grabbed his hand. He disappeared and reappeared in front of the academy. What was that for? Asked Naruto. Class started 5 minutes ago, explained Yondaime. Then a thought passed the blonde boy's head. Why the hell didn't you teleport us in front of the compound in the first place? He asked, annoyed. It was part of your punishment to run, said Yondaime, grinning and disappearing again. Naruto shook his head and cursed under his breath. He walked inside the academy and he immediately noticed the difference between the moment when students are in their classes and when they are in break. The corridors were completely empty, no one was moving, nothing was moving. Naruto reached his class, he knocked at the door and walked inside. Everyone inside looked at him, wondering where he was. Kazuki looked at Naruto silently for a second before he started talking. Did you deliver the letter? He asked. Naruto nodded. Yes, I did. But why are you late? Class started 5 minutes ago, said Kazuki. Captain Sajin wanted to talk to me about some things, said Naruto. Kazuki's eyes widened. He wanted to talk to you? He asked. Yeah. Why is it wrong? He asked. No, it's just that he usually doesn't talk to anyone, not even other captains. He only talks to Yamamoto-sama, his friend, and when he gives his division an order, said Kazuki. Naruto shrugged and started walking back at his seat. What did you talk about? Asked Kazuki. Can't tell, said Naruto. Sajin Taiko said he would kill me if I tell anyone, he said, giving his sensei a grin. Kazuki nodded and let the subject drop. He knew that when Sajin says he will kill someone, he would do it. Still, he was interested at what the two talked about, but he decided to let it drop, for now at least. A month later. Another month had passed for Naruto. Time seemed to pass much faster all of a sudden. For this month they spent learning and learning from books. It was completely boring all of a sudden. Mostly because Naruto really wanted to get his Zanpakuto already. In the first day of the academy they said he would get his Zanpakuto after 2 weeks. But 2 weeks had passed a long time ago and he still didn't have his Zanpakuto. Naruto learned more about a Zanpakuto. He also learned from Sajin, whom he visited often. The man was interesting and Naruto really liked him. The captain now talked with Naruto without his helmet on. No longer was he afraid that Naruto would shun him. In fact, he never did see the boy glare and look bad at him. Sajin's respect for Naruto increased over the month. Sajin showed Naruto how a Zanpakuto looks like, or at least how his looks like. He was asked by the boy to show him how it works. Sajin of course started a little spar with his lieutenant to show Naruto how someone fights with a Zanpakuto. But when Naruto asked about his Shikai and Bankai, since he had learned about them in the academy, Sajin would tell him that he is not ready to see such a thing. Sajin was more afraid to show Naruto his Bankai. He didn't want to destroy everything around them. With his family, Naruto finally forgave Minato. After another month of constant apologizing by the man, Naruto finally forgave him. During the Sundays when Naruto wouldn't be in the academy, he would live with his parents. He saw his mother's side, meaning her cooking, and he really enjoyed it. He also saw a part of his father that was similar to his, their affection for ramen. He spent hours talking with Minato about ramen and about Ichiraku, where it seemed that the Yondaime used to go to eat his ramen whenever Kushina wouldn't make him. Kushina scowled Naruto when she found out that during his lifetime he ate more ramen than was necessary. She knew that Sandaime would have bought him some vegetables, which is true, but Naruto would never eat them. He would hide them and pretend that he ate his vegetables. After a month, Naruto made new friends. He finally met Renji's friend, Izuru. The guy seemed nice. He was in the same class with Naruto. They spent a few hours talking, and after that Naruto would go and train with them or eat. From Rukia's side, Naruto met a girl by the name of Matsumoto Rangaku. She was in the second year, but somehow Rukia befriended with her and he befriended with the girl as well. Naruto considered her to be beautiful. She had long dark orange hair, a good body and a nice bust. Naruto would spend time with the two girls after the academy hours. But that was what happened during that month. Right now it was the day Naruto waited for some time now. Today was the day he would get his Zanpakuto. He couldn't help but smile like an idiot all day. Of course that made the students think if he is somehow related to the blonde man that would teach them in the third year, and also think if Naruto was feeling well. Now Naruto and the rest of the class were outside in their training field. One by one the students walked up to the sensei and did as they were told. They each summoned their Zanpakuto. So far everyone's looked almost the same. The difference was that some were larger while other were shorter, some were bigger, other smaller in dimension. What Naruto didn't like was that after they summoned their Zanpakuto they were to unsummon it. Kazuki said that they aren't allowed to have a Zanpakuto only after they graduate. But this was a way to see at what level each of the students' spirit force was. When Naruto's turn came, he walked up to Kazuki. The man was about to tell Naruto how he needs to summon his Zanpakuto when Kenpachi and Yakiru dropped near him. Kazuki turned towards him and raised an eyebrow. Kenpachi looked at Kazuki. "I want to see the boy's Zanpakuto." "Why is that?" asked Kazuki. Kenpachi gave him a maniacal grin. Kazuki understood now why the man wanted to see Naruto's Zanpakuto. He wanted to know if the boy was truly strong. If he was as strong as Yamamoto stated, then his Zanpakuto would be big, very big. Kazuki turned to Naruto. "All right, to summon your Zanpakuto you need to search for it inside of you." Naruto scratched the back of his head. What do you mean by that?" he asked, not understanding. "Like I said, look inside your soul, close your eyes and meditate." Naruto did as he was told. He closed his eyes and started concentrating. He cleared his mind of everything, he could hear everything clearly. Suddenly he felt light. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes and glanced around, he was in a familiar forest. His eyes softened when he realized he was in the forest where he had met Haku for the first time. He glanced around trying to find his Zanpakuto, he figured he had to look for a sword or something. Naruto heard something move behind him and turned around, his eyes widened when he saw Kyuubi coming out of the trees. His 9 tails swinging behind him, he was as tall as a tree. Kyuubi asked Naruto, "What are you doing here?" He asked. "What does it look like?" He asked. "I am your Zanpakuto." Naruto's eyes widen. "What?" He yelled. "I have to deal with you again." Kyuubi sneered. "Like I wanted to work with you, weakling." "What did you say?" asked Naruto deadly while gritting his teeth. Kyuubi sighed. "Anyway, yes, I am your Zanpakuto, but one of them." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "One of them?" he asked. Kyuubi nodded. "Why don't you come out?" he asked towards the woods. Naruto heard something moving behind Kyuubi. He looked carefully and he saw someone coming out from behind some bushes. "Hello," the man said. Naruto studied the man. He looked to be around the age of 30 or so. He wore some strange armor colored white with golden lines moving around the armor. He had a strange helmet. Naruto didn't know how to describe it. The front top of the helmet ended pointy. The middle top of the helmet was missing. The man had dark blue hair. The man had a strange piece of place situated in front of his neck like a shield to protect him for anyone that would try and cut his throat. On the helmet were golden lines. The eye openings were made in such a way that it made the man look fierce. The man wore on his back a strange-looking shield. Like his armor, it was white and had golden lines, but the gold lines formed the head of a dragon that seemed to be roaring. The man had a piece of light blue clothing coming from under his chest plate, it reached to his knees. From under his shoulder guards was another piece of blue clothing coming out. In short, the man looked fierce, his body was covered in armor entirely. Naruto looked at the man's waist and saw a sword attached to it. He couldn't see the blade since the sword was sheathed, but it seemed like the sword was like a standard broadsword, but its hilt looked strange. The hilt started with a blue diamond held by a claw-like model. The hilt was covered with leather, but it was colored light blue. The top end of the hilt ended with a golden design of flames. "Who are you?" asked Naruto. "Me," the man asked. "My name is." "What did you say?" asked Naruto. The man looked at Kyuubi and Kyuubi was looking at him. Then Kyuubi turned to look at Naruto. "Do you know who I am, Kit?" asked Kyuubi. "Yeah, you're Kyuubi no Kitsune," said Naruto. Kyuubi shook his head. "That is just a title given to me by you humans, my real name is." "Huh?" asked Naruto. "I didn't hear." "It seems you aren't ready to hear our names," said the man. Kyuubi nodded. "But we can still ask you why you are here." "I need to call upon my Zanpakuto to show it to my sensei," explained Naruto. The man looked at Kyuubi and Kyuubi looked at him. They both nodded and turned to Naruto. "We will send you back out and we will give you your Zanpakutos, but only for a few seconds." "Why is that?" asked Naruto. "To gain your Zanpakuto you need to pass a test me and my friend here will give you," explained Kyuubi. "Oh, Sensei said something like that a few months ago," said Naruto. "Well, we will see you when the time comes," said the man, and Naruto closed his eyes and felt light. Real world. Naruto opened his eyes. For Kazuki it seemed that only a second had passed. A powerful energy started to move around Naruto. Kazuki and Kenpachi's eyes widened, as well as the students. The energy split in two and moved to his hands. To everyone's surprise, the energies formed two Zanpakutos. The first one started with a blue diamond held by a claw-like model. The hilt was covered with leather, but it was colored light blue. The top end of the hilt ended with a golden design of flames. The blade was long as a katana but not curved, and it was also denser than one. It looked like the blade of a broadsword. The second blade started with the model of 3 horns colored black. The hilt was bloody red and the top end had the design of bat wings, it seemed. The blade was strange, it started dense, then the middle was thick, almost like a katana, then the end became denser again and the end was pointy. The second sword was as long as the first one. Kenpachi was amazed of the boy, he was the third to have dual-wield Zanpakudos. Kazuki was amazed not only about that, but he was amazed that he could feel the sheer power coming from the two Zanpakudos. It was breathtaking, literally, he didn't know how, but the energy created by the two Zanpakudos seemed so immense, it was incredible. The two Zanpakudos then burst. The one with red hilt burst in red flames and then one with light blue hilt turned to ice and then exploded, the shards turning to water and air. Then the fire, water and air transformed to pure spiritual energy and entered Naruto's body, disappearing. Kazuki, like the rest of the class, was gaping at Naruto. Kenpachi was grinning like a maniac at what he saw. He knew the boy was strong and this proved it. Unknown to Naruto, a few of the captains had watched the show and were amazed. Sajin smiled when he saw the two Zanpakudos. A man with long white hair was gaping just like the man next to him that had black hair and wore a straw hat. Minato had his eyes wide as saucers. In Konoha, a month had passed since Naruto's death. The villagers eventually found out and started partying. The Hokage tried to stop them, but when he saw that he couldn't do anything, he stopped trying. The people just seemed to be too stupid to understand who the boy is. They once tried to find his grave and defile it as Kakashi thought it would happen. The Hokage was happy that the council didn't try to erase Naruto's name from the memorial stone. Zabuza had been integrated in Konoha to the displeasure of the council that wanted him dead. Zabuza and Haku entered under the Hokage's protective wings. Zabuza was now a Junin, but he wasn't taking students, not yet. He said it clear that he doesn't want students yet, and Sandaime understood and didn't press him. Haku was integrated into Team 7 and they started doing mission together. Sasuke returned to his brooding during the month. Sakura had completely forgotten about Naruto and just kept stalking Sasuke, and when Haku would try to talk to them she would get paranoid and yell at her that she won't get her hands on her Sasuke. The said boy would growl at his annoying pink teammate and started talking to Haku, much to Sakura's displeasure. Haku still had it bad with Naruto's death. At nights she would cry herself to sleep. She realized that the boy had become a great part of her in just a few days, and now that he wasn't anymore around she couldn't take it. To her happiness, Kakashi, Zabuza and Sandaime were always there to help her. Then a young boy by the name of Konohamaru came to her and he became close to her due to the suffering since he considered Naruto as a brother. To comfort her appeared both Ayame and Tsuki, who were missing the blonde boy. Kakashi would now be 3 hours late for everything. He would always be found in front of the memorial stone looking over 3 names. Said names were Uchiha Obito, Namikaze Minato, and Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. When he would arrive where his team was, he would get yelled at for where he was by Sakura. He would glare at her and tell her to mind her own business. During training, Kakashi no longer paid attention to Sasuke. He started instructing Haku more and more, much to Sasuke's displeasure. He would sometimes teach Sakura and Sasuke, but he would concentrate on Haku. He would favor her since he thought that it was a way for him to repay Naruto. From the rest of the rookies things stood different. As for their sensei, Hinata, when she found out about the blonde boy's death, locked herself in her room and never came out for an entire week, but she vowed to become stronger and she slowly improved. She was still afraid of her father and his voice, she still stuttered. Hinata started ignoring Sakura for the way she seemed to have forgotten about Naruto and the way she acted. It just made her angry and she didn't want to see the pink girl. Kiba didn't know Naruto all too well. During the academy he was just an annoying boy, though at first his mother told him to stay away from him. She then told him that she was wrong and that he should befriend with him. Kiba talked with Naruto whenever he wanted. He learned a few things about him but not enough. He didn't mourn him only a few days, and once per day he and his teammates, including their sensei, would go to the memorial stone and lay a white flower for Naruto. This thing got picked up really fast, and strangely after some time, Zabuza, Kakashi, Sandaime, Iruka, Konohamaru, Ayame, Tsuki, a spandex-wearing Junin by the name of Guy, Asuma, and his team would all come to the memorial stone on Sundays and lay a white flower for the fallen hero. Shino didn't know what to think. He was amazed that Naruto died. No, he was shocked that Naruto died. During the academy he saw the blonde boy was holding back, a lot. He was much stronger than he looked to be and it shocked him to find out that he died. He off them all. The same thoughts were shared by Shikamaru. Both boys didn't cry, to show they were strong for him. But at nights they would think about him and smile when they would remember his pranks and the way he acted. Ino was a bit disappointed on Sakura for forgetting about Naruto. Truth was that she wasn't all that interested in Naruto, but he was a friend and an old classmate. It was just right for them to mourn him, but it seemed that Sakura didn't care about it. Ino would think about the boy when she would look over the shop. It seemed just right to think about what he did in the academy and his everlasting smile. Shoji was sad that Naruto died. He had lost a ramen lover, someone he could talk about ramen and eat it. He, like everyone, mourned him for a few days and then using his memory he would think about the boy. Iruka was mostly affected. He took it hard. He took Naruto's death hard. Every day he regretted for putting Naruto in Team 7, or at least putting Sakura in Team 7. He at nights wished that he could change the events, that he could go back in time and stop all this from happening. He didn't hate Haku and Zabuza. He knew what Naruto wanted to do, and he respected that. He would be seen sometimes comforting Haku or giving her tips about training. He felt that being close to the girl he would be close to Naruto, as Naruto's last act was to save someone precious to him. She was precious for him. Asuma for a few days didn't know how to react. He didn't know the boy too much. He saw him a few times doing his pranks, running around and smiling. He respected the boy for what he did and for his devotion to save someone innocent. He didn't quite know how to feel for the loss. Sure, he was sad, but he didn't know how to react. Same with him was Kurenai. Not even she knew how to react. She was sad of the state Hinata had reached because of the boy's death. She was sad that Naruto, the happy figure, died. The person that always brought a smile to everyone, died. Kakashi sighed as he looked at the sky. In a few months the Chunin exams would come. He didn't know if he should nominate his team or not. He knew he would have nominated it if Naruto was still alive and in his team, but now he didn't know what he should do. He didn't know how he should react. He was lost.